Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. My name is Gabrielle Gannon, and I am one of the mamas behind Jersey City Mamas. I see lots of familiar faces, whether from seeing you in real life or just over WhatsApp, so I'm sure most of you know Jersey City Mamas, but for those of you who are less familiar, Jersey City Mamas is a community, and at our core is connection. Connecting in real life, connecting virtually through thousands of WhatsApp conversations every single day, and being there for one another, supporting each other, fostering community, and taking on the subjects that matter to the families of Jersey City. So I'm honored to stand here tonight, and I'm so grateful to each of our mayor candidates for joining us. Thank you for making the time. We're so excited to hear what you have to say. So tonight we have with us, I'm going to introduce you all just to say hello. We have Musab Ali, former Jersey City Board of Education president. We have Jim McGreevey, former governor of New Jersey and executive director and chairman of the board of the New Jersey Reentry Program. We have Bill O'Day, Hudson County Commissioner. And we have James Solomon, Ward E Councilman. And we'll be joined later by Council President Joyce Waterman. Joyce had a scheduling conflict, but she will be here, so that will be great. Before we jump in, I wanted to talk a little bit about what prompted us to host this event and why it was so important to us. For those of you who do follow us on Instagram or you're in our WhatsApp, you may recall that there was a little kerfluffle back in November after the presidential election. We had some strong opinions, my team and I, and we don't hold back. And what surprised me the most was the reaction not to what we had to say, but was that we had anything to say at all, and that mommy groups shouldn't be political, and that politics don't belong here. So I'm here to say tonight that parenting is political. Being a mother is political. And at this moment, when women's reproductive health rights are under attack, when education is under attack, when the US Secretary of Health is attacking and saying hurtful comments about autistic children, now is the time to speak out. We cannot stay silent. And so that is why we are here tonight. So here's how this is gonna work. Each of our candidates will have 5 to 7 minutes to tell you about their plans and their visions for Jersey City and how it will impact you, how it's going to impact families, women, children of Jersey City. After that, I'm going to hand it over to Francesca, who is going to moderate the questions that you submitted. Francesca Larson is a working mom of 2. She's my dear friend. She's an active community member. She sits on the board of the Waterfront Project. She is a small business owner of Studio Mosaic. And she's much better qualified than I am to manage these questions. Before we get started, before I put this microphone down, I do want to say a few thank yous. I want to thank NAR Collective for hosting us tonight.
Bravo!
I want to thank Francesca for being here to moderate. I want to thank Zach Hershen in the back there, who is videographing this. Zach is donating his time, and it was quite a lot of it, to get this set up so that we could live stream on YouTube. So shout out to everyone watching at home on YouTube. Hi, Mom. She is. And thank you to Jushi Jian, who is photographing tonight, a local mom and business owner herself. And to our food vendors, everyone make sure to grab some delicious bites. All right, so let's get started. So Musab, you have the honor of having an A last name, so you are on deck, my friend.
All right. You know, this happened to me in school, too. Whenever you start with an A last name, they always call you up first. So my name is Musab Ali. As Gabby mentioned, I'm the former president of the Jersey City Board of Education. And I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. My family immigrated to this country when I was 3 years old from Pakistan in search of the American dream. My father, his first job was actually working at Newark Airport. On September 11th, he had a job, and on September 12th, he lost his job just because he had the most common name in the world, Muhammad. So I grew up in Jersey City going to public schools. My mom is a union teacher. My dad ended up working at the Postal Service, so I'm the proud son of 2 union parents. And my parents really emphasized how important it was for me to get a really excellent education. I went to PS6, then Academy 1, then McNair Academic High School. And when I graduated high school, I got a full scholarship to go off to college. Now, as soon as I graduated from high school, when I was 19 years old, is when I first ran for office on the Jersey City Board of Education. And many people thought it was a crazy thing to do. But the reason I did it is because I recognized that the most important question a city should be asking is, what are we doing for the next generation of people who are living here? And for me, I saw that for so many of my classmates, they were being left behind, and that there was so much more that we could do to invest in their futures. If you look back at my conversations, even back in 2017 and 2018, when I was a teenager, I was talking about tax abatements, I was talking about S2, I was talking about what was coming for the Jersey City Board of Education. Just last night, the Board of Education passed their fully funded budget. They raised taxes by $90 million, a 16% tax increase. And this is something that's been projected for the last 8 years. But somehow, instead of having a Board of Education that worked hand in hand with City Hall, we had a district that was working by itself and a City Hall that said, look, this is not our problem. And I think the reality is, what I learned from my time on the Board of Education was that in order to serve our students the best, we need to recognize this is not just a district problem, this is a citywide issue. And that the mayor's office needs to work hand in hand with the Board of Ed to make sure we have the best opportunities for our children. And so for me, I think a lot about education. I know there's gonna be tons of questions about education here, so I'm gonna save a lot of remarks on that. But I also think a lot about pedestrian safety. I think about public transportation. And I also think about how we, at the local level, have to have that resistance towards Trump. I think the remarks Gabby was making in terms of, reproductive rights being under attack, our education being under attack. These are all things that we can no longer trust the courts. We can no longer trust Congress. This is something we have to deal with at the local level. And so I think a lot about, what does the mayor's office have the capacity to do in order to fight back? And my whole life, I've trained to be that fighter, and I hope to earn your vote to continue fighting for you in City Hall. Thank you.
Go for it, Jim.
Sure. Hi, my name is Jim McGreevey. Born in Jersey City. Like Musab's parents, but my grandparents came to this country from Ireland. And traditionally, Jersey City routes. My grandfather was a Jersey City police officer. My mom was a nurse at the old medical center. My dad worked in the railroad before he went to the United States Marine Corps. I'm blessed to come back home and to be involved in Jersey City. And I think, as you'll hear from James and Billy and Musab, I think a lot of us share the same thoughts and the same concerns. I mean, for mothers and for parents, it's obviously education. And I think thank you. I'll consider that an endorsement. But on a serious note, education is something that we have to be very much concerned about, not only from a budgetary stance, but also in terms of the quality of our education. If I can, one of the things that I see that is so critically important to education is early childhood literacy. We all understand that if a child can't read at 3rd grade, he or she doesn't have the necessary proficiency, it can become very difficult. Because in 4th grade, you need more reading, for history, for language arts, for science. And so 3rd grade literacy is critically important. Unfortunately, if you look at the stats in terms of Jersey City schools, you'll see about 36% of the children in 3rd grade are at age-appropriate levels. When you look to 8th grade, particularly on mathematics, you'll see that only 10% of the children throughout Jersey City schools are proficient based on state standards. So I would suggest that we need to do so much more in terms of education and in terms of elementary education and secondary education. One of the things that concerns me is when I talk to young couples, when I talk to parents, they'll say, I'm going to be here through perhaps primary school, but when I start looking at middle school, I'm going to have to move out because I'm concerned about the quality of my children's education. If you want a great city, you have to have great schools. And I want to be that mayor that focuses a significant amount of my time on schools. Having great schools, working with City Hall, working with the school district, working with collaborative organizations, listening to you, but improving the quality of our education. And I'm sure while we talk a little longer, we'll be talking about affordability, we're going to be talking about public safety, we're going to be talking about traffic and so many of these issues. But I think in terms of parents, as a father of 2 daughters, education was so critically important to me. And if I can, I think we're at a pivotal point in terms of Jersey City's position. And right now, as Musab alluded to, with SEA 2, where Jersey City lost $250 million, we have to address that loss, but it can't simply be on the backs of the property taxpayers. And so I want to be that partner that works with the school district, whether on new schools, on schools that are relevant and in close proximity to development, but also schools that prepare our children for the next generation. And again, I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to the opportunity to talk about so many other issues during the course of the evening. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Bill O'Day. In addition to being a county commissioner, I'm the executive director of a not-for-profit economic development company based out of Elizabeth, New Jersey. You know, I've had the opportunity of spending my entire life in the city of Jersey City. I've seen the growth, and I've seen us become the most diverse city in the country. Frankly, I'm very proud of Jersey City, and while there's room for improvement, I see our glass as half full. We need to build on our successes and recognize our failures. I believe that my decades of hands-on experience gives me the tools necessary to do that, and that's why I'm running for mayor. My commitments are more than promises. They are based on my proven record of 35 years of elected experience. I've never been afraid to take on the powers to be, and I won't be shying away from that if I'm the mayor. Whether it's standing up to the governor of the state of New Jersey to change the formula, or standing up to Donald Trump for one of the insane positions he's taken and the stripping of federal dollars from the city that's going on as we speak. I'm committed to working with the public schools to make them better, not tearing them down. I'm tired of people just tearing down our schools. The blame game needs to end from both sides, from the mayor's office and from the Board of Ed. And this starts with correcting a flawed formula when it comes to funding our public schools. The state of New Jersey stole $250 million a year from our kids. How can Patterson get 4 times as much state as we do? How can the city of Union City get almost twice as much money as we do? How can West New York get more state school aid than we do? I'm going to read you a quote. The formula punishes Jersey City for political reasons. That's not my quote. That's the quote of State Senator Raj Mukherjee, made just 2 weeks ago. The same Raj Mukherjee who up to a couple of years ago represented both Union City and West New York. So he knows how badly we got screwed. We all together, no matter what our party, no matter what our age, need to come together. We need to change the formula. We need to put in place a formula that is based on the number of students that are eligible for free school lunch and special needs students. That will give us back our $250 million we need. And once we get that, we have to make sure that the additional state aid is targeted to students in the above categories. That includes programs, after-school programs, opening up schools in evenings and weekends for recreation programs, like when I was a kid, creating more community schools, more early childhood programs and centers for our children. We need to build on the models we have, and we need to make them more successful. We need free summer SAT classes so our young people who can't have or have parents who can't afford Princeton Review have the same opportunity to get into a good college or university like Musab Ali did. We also need to make sure the city of Jersey City gets its act together when it comes to collecting payroll taxes, because up to recently, they haven't done a good job. Developers have gotten away without paying any payroll tax. That's more money necessary that can go into our public schools. But we also have to improve recreation in the city because that affects our young people. We have great parks and we have horrible parks. As a county commissioner who's in charge of the Parks Committee, I pride myself on the fact that Lincoln Park has been in my district for 27 years. And it's well maintained and it's well taken care of. And you know what else we have in that park? Free summer camps. When I was a kid in Jersey City, we had free summer camps. I went to one of them. In Lincoln Park this year, we have a free tennis camp, a free basketball camp, a free volleyball camp, and a free soccer camp. In fact, we even have a camp for the little guys, 3 years now, up from 2 to 5, because the community and the moms in the West Side community and other parts of the city wanted it. So these are the things that we need to do. We need to work together. We need to stand together. And we have to be not afraid to stand up and fight against the state of New Jersey when we need to, and fight against the federal government. Because we're all for creating more affordable housing. I've had the opportunity to work hands-on in the construction of over 800 units of affordable housing in my job in Elizabeth. Some of those units also in Jersey City, from the transitional housing for homeless vets on Ocean Avenue to a project I'm working now with Black law enforcement serving community to do 18 units of low-income housing and moderate-income housing on MLK, which will include their offices for the programs they do for the young kids from PS15. So working together, standing together, fighting together is something I've been committed to my entire life and something I'll be committed to as the mayor of Jersey City. Thank you.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? Good. We just want to thank the JC Mamas for hosting. Thank you to NAR Collective, and thank you to my fellow candidates. My name is James Solomon. I'm the current Wardee Councilman. Just want to briefly introduce myself and why I'm in public service, and then talk a little bit about the vision for Jersey City. So my journey to Jersey City starts with my wife, Gabby, who's all the way in the back. So we were dating long distance. She got a job in New Jersey and decided to move here. And so she came first. And so she went to a couple different towns in New Jersey to see where she wanted to live. I say this among friends. First, she went to Hoboken and was like, absolutely not, under no circumstances. But then she came to Jersey City. And she called me up, and I was sitting in my cubicle, and I like wandered out of the hall, and I whispered, I'm like, Gabby, what's up? Why are you calling me at work? And just with no hesitation, we have some young people in the room, so I'm going to censor. She says, James, I bleeping love Jersey City, and this is going to be our home. And it reminded Gabby of the Brooklyn she had grown up in, and we came, and it became home, and it became the place that we loved. But I think I didn't realize how special Jersey City was until a couple years later. So some of you know my story. In 2015, a month after we had gotten married, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. I'm blessed today to be in remission now for 9 years. I know we have other folks on the stage here who have that same blessing. And I had to think, as I went through that diagnosis, what I wanted with my life. And there were really two things that I wanted to use that second chance for. It was family and service. So after we got better, we start on the family piece, and we're blessed today to have our 3 daughters, Camila, Corinne, and Noelle. And a few of you in this room see me at drop-off before I've had coffee, so I apologize for anything I may say or do before caffeine is in my system. And then we're blessed to have service. So I get to serve our incredible city on the city council in Jersey City. And when I ran in 2017, I really wanted to do service, I think, differently than too often it's been done. An example of how do you do public service the right way. So I made 2 promises. The first was not to take donations from Jersey City developers, not because development is inherently wrong, but because too often this city has been poorly served by pay-to-play politics that allow developers to get what they want and not the community to get what it needs. And then the second was to remain independent from the Hudson County political machine, because too often that machine knows how to serve itself, and then you saw in Commissioner O'Day's statistics some of the ways that it does that, but does not serve our broader community. And I've been proud to stay true to those promises and hopefully deliver a model that shows you that you don't have to choose between effective and ethical public service, that you can deliver both. A couple of things I'm most proud of that directly relate to what we're talking about tonight. First is working extraordinarily hard to deliver payroll tax revenue to fund our public schools without harming our taxpayers. We did an audit, and we found significant lack of payment from large corporations in Jersey City. We called some of those corporations out on social media, and we were able to increase collections this year compared to last year by over $40 million. $40 million that has helped our public schools this year. Second, when I ran, was pedestrian safety. all throughout Jersey City, every parent I know has had a close call on the streets of Jersey City. If you've walked the streets in Jersey City, you have seen people run stop signs, seen people run red lights, and it's simply not acceptable. When it started in 2017, there wasn't a single protected bike lane in the city. There were no intersection safety, basically mechanisms, and most of the streets downtown didn't have safety improvements. So we're proud that we've done safety improvements on pretty much every major street, Grand, Jersey, Columbus, Green, Washington, but we also know that it's not enough and that we must have real traffic enforcement to make our streets truly safe. And then the last was to try to create broader statewide reform. So we helped reform our state ballot to create a fair ballot and not let the political machine handpick their candidates. But I think all of us are running because we know it's not enough. Right? Jersey City is at this crucial moment where as rents rise and as property taxes rise and as school performance isn't where it needs to be, the future and the dream of Jersey City is at risk. And I know so many families and so many parents that are thinking about whether they can stay, whether they're born and raised or they moved here 2 years ago. If property taxes increase another 16%, again, can you afford to stay? If the local public school isn't good or you don't win the lottery to a charter school or to a magnet high school, are you going to stay? And so for me, running is about making sure that we are a city of families, cities of families that are rooted and not a city that is transient, where people are here for a couple years and then off to the next stop. And I think there are a number of ways to do that, but a couple of those core commitments. The first is to be a partner in public schools, with our public schools from the mayor's office. I will contrast with the current mayor. The current mayor too often washes his hands of the public schools and says they're not my responsibility. I think that is the wrong approach. Education is the single most important thing in our city, and as mayor, you have to take ownership of it. You can't say, well, I don't elect the board, not my problem. The second thing is to ensure that our public schools are both well-funded and well-governed, so to ensure that I'm working to make sure our schools get the resources they need, but also ensure that those who lead have a real vision for strong public schools. And then the third is to make Jersey City a place that's affordable, that families can afford to stay with stabilized property taxes, more affordable homes, and strong protections for tenants. That's the Jersey City I want my daughters to grow up in, and I think it's the Jersey City that all of the folks in this room want for their families. So thank you all so much for having me. I'm excited to get to the Q&A.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to all of our candidates tonight for your opening statements. Thank you for everybody for being here at NARA. Thank you to the folks who are watching at home, to my girls who are at home, Serafina and Araminta. You've got 30 minutes. And you cannot use me being on the TV as an excuse. We can watch it tomorrow when you watch Bluey instead. But I also want to thank the moms who are here tonight and the parents who are here tonight. Something that's really important to this conversation is that every single one of us in this room probably needed to be somewhere else and made some very intentional sacrifices and had intentional conversations and did some planning and some pre-work and probably have to do something tomorrow to make sure that we could be in this space together tonight to hear from y'all. And so I ask on behalf of the parents and the caregivers and the community members who are here tonight, to the folks who are watching from home, that you take that seriously in this conversation. As moms, we're really supportive, but we also know if you haven't done your homework. We heard the opening statements. We know what those sounded like. We're excited to hear some more specifics. We're excited to hear some storytelling, and also know that I've done quite a bit of political debate prep in my background. But this isn't a debate. It's just a conversation with moms. I don't know, my kids would probably call that a debate. There goes the papers. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. As we jump in, there's one thing that is probably a little bit clear from our panel tonight, and it's something that we want to make sure that is addressed as one of you, and if it's Councilwoman, Council President Waterman enters City Hall, We want to make sure that this community is represented as part of the policymaking. So, a quick opening. What's your approach to policymaking that actively considers and reduces the burden on families and caregivers? How will you ensure that your administration views every issue, not just childcare in schools, although we care about childcare in schools, but every single issue through the lens of how it affects those holding their families together? We're going to start right in the middle this time. We'll start with Jim.
Sure. Great question. And again, I just want to say thank you. Public policy, or just sort of setting a course for the community, for Jersey City, requires all of us to be part of that vision. And so, I previously served as mayor of Woodbridge Township for 10 years in government. And part of it is also asking people to join with you, to be part of those discussions. There are a couple simple areas. One is I had town meetings literally every month. And so I would ask people to come in. I would bring all of the directors before them. I'd ask people to share their questions, their concerns, their criticisms, their ideas. So the first thing I think which is critically important is to be accessible, is to be out there in the community, to be listening to people, and as importantly is to have your directors to be responsive so they understand, we were here last month and now we're back again and that pipe hasn't been addressed, or that curb cut hasn't been taken care of. Or, for example, that pedestrian safety concern hasn't been addressed. So the first thing I think is important is accessibility. Accessibility and transparency, being out in the community. The second thing that, for me, is having a clear goal of what we want to accomplish. And my dad used to say all the time, plan your work and work your plan. And so what I think is important is whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about affordability, pedestrian safety, public safety, is to have a clear delineation of what it is that we want to accomplish. And have people share those ideas and sometimes even debate those ideas, but to be part of the solution. And then literally to set forth timeframes in which we're going to accomplish those ends. So when you say that, how do we ensure that mothers, how do we ensure that families are part of the process? At the end of the day, I think all of the individuals up here and Council President Waterman are here to serve you, to serve the community. But it's also about how we develop plans, how do we execute plans, and how do we ensure that those plans are followed through. So again, it's town meetings, it's accessibility, it's setting forth clear metrics and ensuring we meet those metrics, and then going back to the community and say, look, this is what we were able to do, this is what we were not able to do, let's discuss this further. So for me, I say one of the great joys is having been mayor and having been in state government, I think this is the level of government that's most engaging. You can change people's lives. You can provide better schools. You can provide safer communities. But at the end of the day, it's whether or not people are engaged to serve on boards, to be volunteers. And my commitment to all of you is that directors will return your call. My sense is, and I know this is, I'm careful about painting with a broad brush, but people are frustrated that City Hall isn't always responsive to your needs. If people have a concern, if people have a complaint, they can't always get a response in a timely basis. Part of what I believe is to understand that the citizen is our client, we're in the service business, and to the degree possible, we want to be that. And let me just say, to pivot back to one other question, is on property taxes. On property taxes, what we heard time and time again, literally 4 years ago, Jersey City had the highest property tax increase in the state of New Jersey. And I think part of listening carefully is what I hear is about affordability on the property tax side, on the rent side, and one of my commitments, the same way I did it when I was mayor of the Township of Woodbridge, is to control costs. And lastly, have the financial discipline to live within our means. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll
Go
try
ahead.
to keep my answer shorter than my opening statement.
You know what? You said
You
it,
know-
not me.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it starts with this, 201-332-1187. It's my cell number. I give it to everybody. I have one cell phone. It's the same number I've had for, believe it or not, when I went to Verizon, I said, you want my business? Give me my home number. So I'm always available. I'm always accessible. I walk my neighborhoods. I walk to the supermarket. I walk to the park. People call me, text me. If there's a problem, you come to me. That's where the buck stops. Yes, we always reach out to the community. I'm a huge believer that policies are formed by talking to the people that are influenced by it. Why is there a camp now for 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds in soccer in Lincoln Park? Because the moms contacted Danielle and said, we need to have a program. That's what public servants are supposed to do. They're supposed to be available for you. They're supposed to be accessible to you. And they're supposed to listen to what you have to say. I'm a problem solver. But when you solve problems, you need to talk to experts. So if it's affordable housing, I work with people that are experts in that. If it's early child care and the fact that we need more early child care facilities, I'm not sure why we haven't put them in more development projects that got built, but those are the things that we have to do. I believe that decisions are not made in a vacuum, that some of the best programs that we've ever had, that I've ever been involved in, never came from my thoughts, but came from the thoughts of the community. So talk to people that know me. 27 years I've been on the commissioner board, 8 years I was a city councilman. One thing, and this isn't not because I like you, Jim, James, they tell me. But when I go to a council meeting and they let the public speak and no one responds to them, that drives me crazy. If you ever come to a county commissioner meeting and speak, you'll hear me respond to you because I learn from what you have to say. And in order to make change, we have to be able to have a dialogue and an interaction. So when it comes to policy, I'm there, we're there. If a director doesn't respond to you, you call my cell number.
That was a little bit shorter. It was good, but
Well, he set the timeline, though. He set the stage. If you told us a minute, then we'll do whatever you tell us.
James, go ahead.
All right. I concur with both Jim and Bill's remarks on the importance of accessibility.
This is a very friendly group.
Correct. That's right. I want to add, specifically to I think point Francesca was making about the importance of knowing that every policy you set affects caregivers in the city. And there's a couple ways to ensure that that's sort of an ethos of the government. One is to make sure your teams look like the city that you represent. That's always been something I've been deeply proud of. My chiefs of staff have all been graduates of NJCU. We have folks of different ages, of different ethnicities, of different religions. And the people that surround you have to help advise. That's the first piece. The second piece is that needing not just to listen, but to actively seek out voices, and knowing that if you're static in doing that, you may only hear from voices that are more likely to speak up. And so one of the things that I've tried to do as a council person is proactively schedule meetings with community groups across my district. So meet with all of the PTAs. Met with the PTAs at 16, or they're the CPA, but the PTA at 37 and at 5. Go to via Brinken and Holland Gardens and 72 Montgomery, and go in there and make sure that you are actively seeking out opinions that you otherwise might not have gotten. And then to make sure that those policies ultimately are implemented in ways that respect the extraordinary demands that our society is putting on caregivers throughout this modern society in 2025, so that looks like ensuring, example of a thing that we did. This is something that a number of folks on this stage advocated for, but particularly Commissioner O'Day. But we put in place a fee to enter our summer pools that had never been done ever in Jersey City before, and it made it less accessible. And so they were put in place, voted against it, but lost the vote. They were in place for a year. It didn't make any sense, so we brought it back and we repealed them. So I think that's the type of concrete policy to try to make city services more accessible by listening and being active in the community.
Thank you. Musab?
I think Jim, Bill, and James answered a lot of this question. But I think I do have a little bit of a different perspective on this. So I think accessibility is really important. I liked what Bill said, but I'm going to say a little bit differently. Brian Stevenson has this great quote where he says, those closest to the pain should be closest to the power. right? And I think so often the people who are dealing with the problems on a day-to-day basis, like those are the people that are going to have the solutions, right? Because when you see a problem day after day, you're thinking about, look, how do I solve this problem? Versus when it comes in front of our offices and our desk, we just see the facts, we see certain perspectives, and we're forced to make a decision. And I want to say some ways that I've actually, worked to do that, even when I was running on the Board of Education, right? So when I ran, one of the biggest things that I was fighting for was students' voices to be represented, right? Because the same way that the city is providing services to all the residents, the schools are providing a service to all the students. The first bill that I passed was to get a student representative to sit on the Board of Education. So now, every year, a high school junior gets elected to sit on the Jersey City Board of Education. That bill, Governor Murphy actually took and made a statewide model. So now every single school district across the state now has that as a part of their district. But the second thing that I did is a lot of times there are parents and there are young people who aren't able to go out to these meetings, right? They're not able to go to City Hall. They're not able to go to the town halls, right? I mean, you think about the demands that we have on our time on a day-to-day basis. How are you reaching out to people and having them included in the process so that maybe there's like a blind spot that you have that you're not able to reach? So for us, what we did is, when I was the president of the Board of Education, we allocated $100,000. We gave $10,000 to each high school. This was Title I money. And I went to the students directly. And I said, this is a participatory budgeting project. Where would you want to spend the money? 8 high schools. And I remember, adults pushing back saying, look, these kids are going to vote for a trip to Disneyland. They're going to want game consoles, right? Do you know what every single student, every single high school in Jersey City said? Fix our bathrooms. And I want you to think about that for a second, right? I'd served on this board for several years. There have been several parents that had come to their board meetings. There have been several teachers that had come to our board meetings, administration, superintendents, right? And yet no one was talking about this issue. And yet when we asked the young people themselves, we said, look, I have this money. You can tell me where it goes. They would say to us, look, our doors are broken. We don't have soap in our bathrooms. There's no toilet paper. We don't have period products, right? Water fountains. I mean, that's been one of the big things that we've been working on. But I say that to say, sometimes you have to get a little creative to reach the people who don't necessarily understand the power that they have. And I think particularly in Jersey City, I mean, I love this room because you guys are all super engaged. But when we look at voter turnout, right, for our election, if we hit 25% voter turnout, I'm going to be impressed, right? But the reality is that means that 75% of registered voters are not involved in the process, and half the city's not even registered to vote, right? This is a city that's 41% foreign born. And so you have all these immigrant parents, these immigrant moms, people who are not involved in that process. And I think we have to think as elected officials, not only how are we reaching out to groups like yourselves and moms that are here, but how are we reaching out to those people who don't even realize that they have a voice and they have power? Thank you.
Thank you. So just as we move forward, as much as we really appreciate the longer answers, and they're very well thought out, and your staffs are doing an excellent job prepping you, and your experience is clearly showing, we want to make sure we get through as many of the questions from our community as possible. So if we can try to keep answers to about a minute each, and I'm not going to hold you super accountable, but if you could just elbow the person next to you if they're going on a little that's just a demonstration of how you'll hold each other accountable, how you'll hold.
The problem is 10 seconds in, McGreevey will do that.
It's all right. We're on camera. We can see it.
Oh, very
we can hold that together. Yeah. Culture of accountability here. This is an important moment in our country right now. And we have a series of other topics that we'd like to get to, but before we do that, I think it's really important on behalf of our community to recognize this moment of instability. We're entering a time of national uncertainty, where federal protections for immigrants, for LGBTQ families, and other vulnerable communities are at risk of being rolled back. Families here in Jersey City are already feeling the pressure. Immigrant residents are afraid to access public spaces, trans and queer families are questioning their safety, and many parents are unsure if their city will protect them in the years to come. Jersey City is proudly one of the most diverse cities in the country. I still think it's the most diverse, but we all agree, right? We agree. But in moments like this, diversity cannot just be a slogan. It has to show up in policy, protection, and political courage. So we ask you, how will your administration meet this moment of instability, of uncertainty? And if you were mayor right now, what would you be saying and what would you be doing? Bill.
So if I was mayor today, I'd be saying and doing what I'm doing as a county commissioner. Stand up to Donald Trump. Tell him to stop doing what he's doing to us. Stand up for our immigrants. Stand up for our LGBT community, because those are the things we need to do. You know, when I was a commissioner and Trump was there the first time, I was one of the only 2 commissioners who voted against extending the ICE contract. Not only did I vote against extending the ICE contract, putting ICE individuals in our county corrections facility, but also what I did is I made that meeting go to 2 o'clock in the morning. Because when the chairman ran out, because he didn't want to hear the people talk after it got voted through, I kept 5 other members there. And you know what happened to me? They stripped me of my vice chairmanship, and they threw me off the Public Safety Committee. And I wear that as a badge of honor. I never bragged about it. I never complained about it. But that's what I did. And as mayor of the city, I'll do the same thing. If I'm not going to be afraid for Trump to threaten to take our money away, because you can't let somebody hold us hostage and hold us ransom.
Thank you.
Yeah, in September and October of this year, we knew what was possibly coming. That a president who is bent on dictatorial power, who gains power by harming others, who targets communities for his own benefit, particularly LGBTQ community, immigrant communities, that he was trying to regain power. So the first thing was, I didn't just talk about it, we went to Pennsylvania. We organized people, we knocked on doors. I brought my daughter down and we knocked on doors together, because even though she's young, this is the country she's inheriting. And I am so deeply worried that Donald Trump is trying to ensure that my kids do not grow up in a democracy. And so it's my job as a citizen and then as an elected official to do everything in my power to stop that from happening, and not just talk about it, but put words into action. I was proud to stand with Commissioner O'Day fighting ICE in 2018 and 2019 and suffered the same different consequences, but similar, from the political machine. You have my firm commitment when that Donald Trump tries to blackmail us to turn JCPD into an ICE deportation force. My answer will be hell no, and we will use every tool in our book to push back. But know that he is hurting us now. He has taken $2 million of already approved grants away. These were environmental justice grants that were going to plant trees on MLK, that were going to support teens in teen wilderness, that support our immigrant and veteran communities. That type of pain is already being felt. And so as a councilman, we're going to do everything in our power to fight back against him. And as mayor, I'll do everything in my power to fight back against him.
Yeah, I think echoing the points Bill and James made, I mean, I have a very distinct memory of Trump, which is in 2016 when he was running for office. He only has one quote about Jersey City. I don't know if people in this room remember this, but he talked about thousands and thousands of people cheering on the rooftops of Jersey City, New Jersey during 9/11. And that was what motivated me to run for office the first time, right? The fact that this guy could run for office and talk about our hometown like that. But I want to say, look, I think when it comes to this city, right, this is the city that's the home of Ellis Island. It's the city that's home of the Statue of Liberty. We need to stand up for our immigrant community that's here, right? I mentioned that statistic earlier. 41% of Jersey City residents are foreign born. You have to just think about what's racing through their minds. I mean, I remember I was at a rally recently, about a couple weeks ago, where we were speaking out against ICE and the deportations that were happening. That same rally 4 years ago maybe had 500 people. This time had 50 people. And I think that so many people are scared because Trump is saying to them, if you speak out, if you exercise your First Amendment rights on a whole host of issues, we're going to deport you, we're going to suppress you. But look, I think it's so important for us to organize, because I remember post 9/11 America, the Muslim community was under surveillance. And because of that surveillance, there was this chilling effect where we felt like we didn't have a right to speak out. But I say to you today, the best way to fight back against that form of surveillance is to organize, to mobilize, and to make sure we have each other's back. Thank you.
When I came out as being gay, it was obviously a significant moment in my life and for the life of my family. But the one thing that crystallized so powerfully for me was that as perceived as a middle-aged, white, straight guy who was governor with all the attendant privileges. And in one conversation later, back then, didn't have the right to marry, the question of adoption, the question of living will, and so many other issues. So on a gut human level, I understand and I'm grateful for an understanding of the importance of civil liberties and rights in this country and how they can be ephemeral. For me, in terms of my day job, what I do with New Jersey Reentry, we have 27,000 people that are coming back home from prison. I just got the elbow. Coming home from prison, coming home from jail, coming home from addiction treatment, and veterans. And obviously, by virtue of the people I work with, particularly in terms of immigrant communities that are court involved, they have struggles. And what I'm proud of the fact of what we do is that we provide quality services to those individuals every single day. And whether it's we work to provide health care, we connect people to housing, and particularly children in terms of health care, inoculations, and vaccinations, it's so critically important. So for me, when we discuss these issues, what touches my heart deeply is to continue to provide services to people who yearn for those services. And that's my commitment, is to do what I do every single day in terms of New Jersey Reentry. And if I can, I'd encourage you to go to our website, www.njreentry.org, under Espiritu Latino, and look at the services we provide for families, which to my mind provides real tangible services that makes their lives better. Thank you.
We're moving on to housing. So prep your talking points. Y'all should all be ready for this one. This one is not a surprise. When we looked at the number of questions that we got from the public, I would say about 40% of them touched on housing and affordability in some way. I could list the stats. There's a long frame of stats I can list about that housing expenses are 71% higher than the national average in Jersey City, that 70% of our residents are renting, and that the overall cost of living is 25% above the US norm here. None of that really illustrates how stressed families are. It is really hard to feel stress in a number. But our assumption is that you are hearing those stories everywhere on the campaign trail, in every neighborhood in this city. So we ask you, assuming no additional funding from state or federal resources, very specific there, what specific actionable steps will you take as mayor to address Jersey City's housing affordability crisis? Please detail the policies you would implement, the timeline for these initiatives, and how you would ensure accountability and measurable outcomes. Right there, outcomes. In a minute. In 1 minute and 30 seconds. And if you need to refer us to something on your website or another video, we're open to that.
All righty. To Francesca's point, if you're doing your job in public service in Jersey City well, you are hearing about housing every single day. You have people who are being abused by landlords. You have people who cannot find an affordable unit. And you have folks who believe that the increase in property taxes is going to push them out of the city. So you have to have actionable plans to address. So a couple of things that I am committed to doing. The first is to mandate, with no state or federal extra funds, 20% affordable housing in large-scale projects in Jersey City. It is the only way, with all the development that's happening, that if we do not mandate it in new projects, we will not get it. The second is to have the strongest tenant protections in the country. We passed a right to counsel bill in 2023. It is going to be paid for largely by a fee on market rate development, and that was scheduled. It is going to start this year, and it will be fully implemented in 2026. But we are also going to significantly improve the funding and the manpower in our landlord-tenant office. And then 3, we need to make sure the people who serve Jersey City can live in Jersey City. And so we have a plan to take abandoned lots and vacant lots and work with the JCRA to turn them into workforce housing so that teachers, firefighters, doctors, nurses can have affordable workforce housing that's rent to own.
Thank you.
I actually want to throw another statistic out there that I think is really interesting. From 2018 to now, 55% of renters in Jersey City have had to move out of Jersey City. So when you think about who is from Jersey City, I mean, like, the majority of those people have actually already been pushed out. I mean, that is the extent to the affordability crisis that we're facing in this city. I think there's a couple of things that we need to do. I think the number one thing we need to do is address this massive amount of demand that's here. And I want to say very clearly, it's not just demand because Jersey is a great place to live. We've also induced demand, right? And the way we've done that is Jersey City has gone on a campaign, this whole Jersey City Make It Yours campaign. We spent millions of dollars marketing the city in a very distinct sort of way for very distinct types of residents. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for Jersey City to grow, right? I mean, again, this is the home of Ellis Island. We love new people being part of the city. But what so many people are feeling is they're feeling left behind and they're feeling squeezed, right? They see all these this new development that's happening, and they feel like they're not a part of the wealth creation that's happening, that they don't feel like they're benefiting from the new development that's taking place. And I would say, look, part of the solution, though, is we have to build more housing, but different types of housing, right? Right now, all we're building is luxury rentals. And the problem with luxury rentals is those developers have one incentive, and that's to these REITs and these mutual funds to make sure that they're making as much profit as possible. The other thing we need to do is actually make it easier for people to build, right? There's a whole new movement on the left in politics for people that are following in the abundance mindset, which is that we have created too many regulations, and now the cost of people holding onto that land gets passed on to the eventual homeowners or the renters, right? So if a landlord is owning a property for 1 year and can't develop on it, that eventual cost is going to be carried over and positioned on the renter or on the person who's eventually going to own the home. So we need to make it easier on the regulatory side as well. And the third thing we need to do is also make sure that enforcement is a really big priority of the city. I think we see this both in terms of traffic, but also in terms of housing, right? When you talk about code inspectors, when you talk about people making sure that bad landlords are held accountable, so often I hear stories from housing court where people are going in with landlords that have molds, that are not providing heat. And I know Commissioner Day has done stuff about this as well. And there is no one holding them accountable. And we need to make sure that bad landlords are held accountable. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. By the way, I haven't agreed with James and Musab, but let me just share with one area that it's really problematic is enforcement, to pick up on what Musab said. You know, I was going door to door, and there was a gentleman, he's in a wheelchair, and literally there was an effort to move him out of his unit, and they literally moved his ramp. So I went to him, I went to his home, and then he showed me literally bugs, flies that were all over his home, his apartment. And he basically shared how time after time, he had asked the landlord to do something about it, and nothing had been done. For me, that's a moral outrage, and I happen to be a renter. For me, what I think is so important, and I just differ with James on this one point, I want strong tenant rights advocates in City Hall. I want an office of tenant rights advocates in City Hall that are, when somebody comes and when they have a complaint, when they have a concern, it's going to be evaluated, it's going to be reviewed, and City Hall is going to help protect those individuals. I think that's essential, so that it's not just an attorney, well, that may be so helpful, but it's having a unit right within City Hall that's assigned the responsibility of tenant advocates. Second is obviously we have to do more, as James said, in terms of the 20%, in terms of affordable housing, but we also have to do more about affordable housing and workforce housing. This is critically important because middle class and lower working class families are being driven out of Jersey City. And until we have incentives, and I know sometimes that's an awkward word, but I think there is no harm in having incentives when people are building affordable housing, workforce housing, and senior housing. I remember being at a town meeting with a woman, she was in her early 90s, and somebody said to her, well, your house is worth so much more. Thanks, Musab. Your house is worth so much more. And she said, at the end of the day, I don't want to sell my house. I want to die in my house. And so we need to understand that for the working poor, for working families, for affordability, we have to provide partnerships. And one of the areas that, if you look at the Nehemiah projects in the Bronx, if you look at Reverend Flake in Harlem, there are so many good projects because the two most expensive components, as Bill well knows, is the cost of land and the cost of labor. And if we provide the right incentives, we can drive down that cost to provide greater affordability to Jersey City families and renters. Thank you.
So I live this every day. 96 Duncan Avenue, no heat for 2 months. Myself and Joel Brooks went into that building. Within 4 days, had the city declare an emergency, repair the boiler. 1113 Gifford Avenue, just 2 months ago. No electricity in the building for 5 days. We went there on a Saturday. No one was there fixing the electrical service. You know who I called? The commissioner of the DCA. She had an inspector there that day. The next morning I showed up. The electrician was there working. You know what he said to me? If the FBI comes, I don't care. But when the DCA calls, I listen. So every day I live this. Every day I help people that are getting evicted from their buildings. And while the city's starting their right to counsel, before that, I stood up, sponsored, and got the county to fund right to counsel because we couldn't wait. No disrespect to Jersey City. We couldn't wait for the money to be collected to get it started. So that's my experience every day. I've opened up my office sometimes for a person to stay in because they got thrown out of the apartment that they were in. And it took me that long to be able to get them a hotel room or place somewhere. I support the 20%. I was the first person to say the 20% on John Heinous' show, and I'm glad everybody else has come on board with that. I also support 5 to 10% for workforce housing. The difference between me and everybody else up here is I actually do this. I've done this for a living. I'm currently working, like I stated earlier, on writing an affordable housing trust fund application to the state of New Jersey for an 18-unit project on Martin Luther King Drive. I'm working, and I saw Katie Brennan here earlier, with Family Promise, with the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency, to find a location. We're working on trying to find locations for housing for women who are victims of domestic violence, because we can't send them to hotels, because their risk of something happening to them is there. We have to give incentives, including pilots, which is a bad word. No one else here wanted to use that word. But if you're going to do 20% affordable, if you're going to do 5% workforce, the Aspire works. I worked on the Aspire legislation in Trenton when it got adopted. We can create those units. But here's what we need to do. We also need to look at, as James said, every vacant lot in the city, every vacant building in the city. Don't let them go up to the highest bidder, but let them be committed to develop affordable housing. And my last point on this, which doesn't really cost any money, is I believe we should allow upzoning of properties owned by faith-based organizations if they're willing to put community space and 100% affordable housing. There are a lot of lots owned by mosques, churches, synagogues. And if we work with them, and I've met with a lot of them, to allow them to go 4 stories instead of 2 stories, we can create a lot more affordable housing units. And in creating those affordable housing units, we know that we've got faith-based organizations there to help provide the services that those units also need. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful answer on that question. And for those watching the replay later, this is a great moment to press pause and to look up a lot of the terms that were just brought up. Especially right to counsel. Shout out to the Waterfront Project for your work there. We're moving on to education. For more than 2 decades, Jersey City has been led by just 2 mayors, which means the average term is about 10 years. And that's a long time. And so when we think about education, we're looking at an answer not about what you can do in the next year. We're going to ask you to frame any answers around what you think you can accomplish in a decade. I know, right? It's real policy making here. The other thing that I want to put an asterisk around, because this came up, is that parents aren't asking for adequate schools anymore. We're not looking for the adequate version. This is Jersey City. We're looking for excellent. We're looking for best in class. We are looking for brilliant. And we expect that to be representative in your answers tonight. So, if elected mayor, what is your long-term plan, not just for temporary fixes, but for real lasting change over the next decade to make Jersey City's schools excellent? Specifically, how will you ensure budget transparency and accountability? How will you build a productive, solutions-focused relationship with the Board of Education? How will you guarantee that all students, including those with special needs, have access to the resources and opportunities they deserve and that are equal to all other students? And finally, how will you personally lead on this issue instead of passing responsibility off to others? We heard some mentions of that earlier. And how do you expect the people in this room and watching online to hold you accountable to these promises? This one wasn't planned for you to go first,
is that a
but
minute
it fits.
minute question?
You can have 2 minutes and an elbow.
Okay. So again, I'm the only one who's here who served on the Jersey City Board of Education, and I can tell you it is a really tough job. For those of you guys that don't know, the Board of Education members do not get paid. It's a completely volunteer responsibility, and the president of the Board of Education is probably a 35 to 40 hour a week commitment. And so, I always give kudos to people who run for the Board of Education. I see someone here who's run, as well as people who serve on that board. I want to say, look, I look at my own story, and I think about what went right to put me in the position that I was in, right? So I went to PS6, I was selected to a magnet middle school at Academy 1, and then I went off to McNair Academic. And I always tell this story about my 4 teammates at our mock trial team. The 4 of us, 2 of us ended up at Harvard Law School, 1 at Yale Law School, and 1 at Harvard Medical School. These are public school outcomes. So it is possible that you can be from the Jersey City public school system and make it. And now the big question becomes, if that's happening at McNair, how do we make that happen at the rest of our schools? And I think the biggest thing that's missing is providing the wraparound services for our students, but also changing the mentality of a lot of our schools. I'm going to be frankly honest with you. A lot of our students are set up to fail. They go into high school, and the expectation is just that they're going to get a GED, that they're not going to go on and achieve higher education, that they're not going to go on and be successful in their careers. And so they sort of live up to that expectation. They say, okay, I'm going to get a GED. That's what's meant for me. I'm going to end up back in my community. And I think what we need to do is make sure students have opportunities when they're freshmen, when they're sophomores, when they're juniors, to explore outside of just what's possible in the realm of Jersey City. One of the things I was beneficiary of was the Jersey City Summer Internship Program. That existed back when I was in high school. It went away after the pandemic, but it gave students in Jersey City an opportunity to intern with some of the largest companies here in Jersey City. I had some friends that interned with JP Morgan that are investment bankers today, right? I had some friends that interned with NJCU. I mean, we have a thriving corporate scene that exists here in Jersey City that we do not take advantage of. And I think that's the job of City Hall, right? Why don't we work with our corporate citizens to make sure there are pipelines that exist, especially now as college degrees are becoming less and less valued, right? As you think about the advent of ChatGPT and AI, it is less and less reasonable to force every single child to go off to college. We need to be building pipelines for them to go directly into the workforce right here in Jersey City. Another statistic I'll throw out for you, only 17% of people who live in Jersey City work in Jersey City. That is significantly lower than some of our neighboring towns. In Newark, that's up to 25%, right? And so you have this opportunity in Jersey City where the jobs are here. They're created here. And yet our people are not getting access to them. And so when we think about accountability and holding myself accountable in terms of a decade, what that looks like for me is that a child in Jersey City who starts in the public school system knows that they will have an opportunity to have a good paying job right here at home in Jersey City, and then they'll be able to afford to live in the same city that they grew up in. Thank you.
I think Musab's experience is unique. And obviously, bless you, two young guys gals going to Harvard or Yale, et cetera, that's unique. And that's a blessing. I think far more typical is when parents are grappling to figure out, all right, my child has gone through pre-K, my child is in elementary school. What am I going to do for middle school? What am I going to do for high school? Am I going to get them into McNair? Can I get them into county prep? And it sounds like some sort of post-apocalyptic gauntlet trying to navigate the school systems. The folks that I work with are completely on the other side of the spectrum. I mean, frankly, my family happens to be from Clerk Street in Greenville, and the schools, many of those schools don't work. And so what's so critically important is that we work, and my commitment, this to me is one of my core reasons for running for mayor. I want to work with the school district, but I want to require the school district, and they ought to require City Hall to be accountable. And we have to do certain basics well. First, we have to get more money into the classroom and out of, candidly, administration, out of administration. The money needs to be driven into the classroom. Second, we need to understand the importance of quality pre-K. Quality pre-K is essential. Not play, quality pre-K, whether it's learning sounds, whether it's understanding letters, whether understanding the basics of mathematics. Everything demonstrates that quality pre-K helps to launch a child successfully. Third, it's early childhood literacy. We have to make sure, and this will be a citywide, I wrote an op-ed on it because I was so passionate about it. We have to make Jersey City the most literate city in America, which I think is so incredibly important. And then we can talk about whether to go back to Musab's point, whether middle school, whether we go to block scheduling, et cetera, whether we look at alternatives, say go back to vocational education. With what I do with reentry, we provide lessons in HVAC, phlebotomy, electric, et cetera, to some of those job professions for individuals not seeking to go on to college. But I think as mayor, I would meet literally weekly with the Board of Education. I would set benchmarks of accountability, whether on teacher recruitment, whether on curriculum, whether on designing and planning for schools, whether downtown or throughout all of Jersey City. One of the things that astounds me is the fact that we have development, and we have development not necessarily with schools in mind, not necessarily with communities in mind. That shows the lack of reciprocity of cooperative engagement. So to me, I want to work with the school system. I want to set clear benchmarks of accountability. But at the end of the day, regardless of what zip code you live in, that child should have access to a quality education. And at the end of 4 years, let alone 10 years, I want to come back to you and say, this is how Jersey City's metrics have improved on language arts, on mathematics and science, and how we are creating a more competitive academic environment for our children, for every child. Thank you.
So the first thing we need to do is all have the courage to stand up to Governor Murphy and change the formula. Because unless you have the money to do the things you're talking about, they're not going to get done. And you're right. Parts of the city, we have teachers looking to go teaching. And parts of our city, they can't wait to get out of those schools. And that's unacceptable. And one of the things we need to do is stop letting those teachers that are good teachers just transfer to a school that they think is an easier place to teach. I already work with the Board of Ed. I don't need to wait till I'm the mayor of Jersey City to work with the Board of Ed. I talk to them. I work with them. We are working, some of us, on getting schools in development. Bayfront will have a new school. The SDA and the Board of Ed and I have had conversations about taking the VIA parking lot, which is owned by the SDA, and turning it into a pre-K to fourth grade with workforce for home ownership, ultimately co-op, housing above it. So some of us are doing that right now. Here's the reality. We got to put more money in. And yes, we need to make sure that we get rid of the bureaucracy at the top. We need to do that in city government. We probably need to do it in your nonprofit and my nonprofit. But we also need to make sure that we respect the teachers that we have. Right now, we're fighting to get new teachers. It's not easy like it once was. There's competition. There are cities paying bonuses for people to become teachers. So we have to be willing to spend that money and not be afraid to do it. How do you hold me accountable? Hold me accountable in the fact that each and every day I'll be working with one school or another. I'll be making sure that whatever resources they need, and I'm going to incorporate the importance of working with parents. We've got a great set of parents here today. When I leave here today, I'm going to go make sure my 6th grade, 11-year-old grandson did his homework. And if he needs help with his homework, I'm going to make sure I'm there to help him. And everybody here probably does that all the time. But you need to realize how many parents that are out there, for whatever their situation in life is, aren't able to do it. And we, as elected officials, have an obligation to make sure that those young men and young women get those services. It's not enough to talk about it. It's not enough to talk about metrics. We need to use nonprofits that we have. We need to engage the educators we have to make sure that all of these young students have the same opportunity that people that have well-educated parents are able to give to their students. It's why we started an SAT prep course in county prep many years ago, because we needed to make sure that those young people in Lincoln and Snyder, whose parents couldn't afford to pay for Princeton Review, had the same chance to get a good SAT score to get into a good college or university. Those are the things we do. At the end of the day, I look at a public servant this way. Our first and foremost obligation is to be the voice whose voices can't be heard on their own, to speak to those who aren't able to speak for themselves, for the single mom who just survives day to day, who might be a victim of domestic violence and can't give 2 seconds to help her son or daughter do their homework or get ready for a test. It's going to take time, it's going to take money, but at the end of the day, hold me accountable, not in 10 years, but in 4 years, for putting in place whatever infrastructure is necessary to make sure that every child and every student has an equal ability to do their homework, to study, and get an opportunity to advance to the next grade.
Thank you.
So on mine, in your hypothetical, I'm going to have a 17, 15, and 13-year-old in my house. So the hair is going to be all the way gone by that point. But they are at Jersey City Public Schools. And so for me, the standard that I want for my children and for every single child in this city is that you are in the best urban school district in America. That is the standard. And anything less than that means we're not doing good enough for Jersey City. So a couple of the things that over 10 years have to improve, significantly investments in parent engagement in schools. Commissioner Day talked about why that can be so difficult. But it's on the district and the city to do that, right? To ensure that parents have opportunities to engage in schools, knowing all the challenges and obstacles to that. Significant investments in curricular education that Governor McGreevey discussed, that is crucial to ensuring that we have the best public schools. Investments, as Musab discussed, in efforts for high school kids, in the jobs program that Jersey City had to create opportunities. And then I think a crucial thing that hasn't been discussed, but investments in the higher education space in Jersey City. We have 3 institutions of higher education. We have NJCU, we have St. Peter's, and we have Hudson County Community College. Those institutions of higher education are crucial to the people of Jersey City having opportunities. I know so many of my students, I've taught at each of those 3 schools, have used those schools while they were working 1 or 2 other jobs to create the starts of the careers and to pursue their dreams. And too often City Hall has completely ignored those institutions. NJCU is in extraordinary financial difficulty, was forced to merge with another university because the focus of city government wasn't and state government wasn't the people of this city, wasn't the young people and their opportunities. It was too often projects that weren't essential to Jersey City. So for me, there's going to be an extraordinary commitment from pre-K through higher education. And so that accountability piece is crucial. So in 10 years, the goal should be everyone in this room should be able to say Jersey City Public Schools are on track to be or are the best public schools in a city in the country.
Thank you. So we're about to wrap up. And at first, I want to say thank you to everybody who participated tonight for having a conversation and not a debate, as was set out, and for stepping up to the plate to answer our questions in depth and knowing that this is just sometimes the beginning of the conversation.
And when we're done, we do want to give you some time to mingle with everyone who didn't make it out tonight. So, and also get some food. So when we are done, don't all rush out the door. You'll have about 30 minutes to mingle and ask any questions that didn't get answered tonight.
Ooh, those are going to be the better questions. I know. It's all right. Some people have cell phones. We'll get a couple of the answers. Yeah. But we did want to give you a little bit of time because everybody respected our wish not to directly respond to one another during tonight's conversation and to proceed with your own thoughts and your own beliefs and your own value system. And so we want to thank you for that. We also want to give you an extra minute to tackle anything that you feel like you missed or wanted to respond to, because we're fair. We're moms, and we know that we need that moment sometimes, and we just need to hear it out. So as you wrap up, let us know what you love about Jersey City. Let us know if there was anything that you missed or something really important about your belief system or how you would lead that we shouldn't walk out of here today without knowing. And Jim, you get to go first.
Good.
They said a
1
minute.
minute, Jim.
Just 1
No,
minute.
no, she said an extra minute.
No.
It's statutory interpretation.
Oh.
So let me just say that what I love about Jersey City. I love about Jersey City is the people, the richness, the diversity, the strength. I just want to share two things that I didn't hit hard enough on. You know, Musab talked about meeting with students. I met with students and I met with mothers. Two things I just want to share with you. Three, quick. One is I met students who had a cascade of substitute teachers the entire year. Literally substitute. They did not have a teacher for the entire year, a cascade of substitutes. And it's a national crisis, so I want to be clear. It's not the sole purview of the Jersey City Board of Education, but that is fundamentally wrong. The second, I met with a group, and I've seen a lot of hard things in my life, but I met with a group of mothers, single mothers, as Billy alluded to, who had children that had learning disabilities. I will tell you, it was among the worst conversations I have ever heard in my life, with mothers sharing how the IEP, and this wasn't one mother, the solution was to keep that child back in a classroom for another year. And so what I see is when we're talking about educational system, and I know we could do more with the city, we could do more with parents, but we have to do more with the school system. I was with my friend Brandy, and we were in Monumental Baptist Church, where a grandmother shared, and she didn't have access to the internet, and her grandson didn't have books because they solely used the iPad. So she couldn't share the experience of literacy, the experience of reading with her child. So if you look at those three data points, one is substitute, that reality. If you look at IEP and you look at not having books or access to technology to order to launch a student. What I see systemic challenges. And this isn't about castigating blame. We have to, as Billy said, we have to move past that. But we have to recognize what we're spending. $1.1 billion. We're spending $37,000 per child. And so my point is we need to do better. And we need to recognize the elephant in the room, and there are great teachers in Jersey City. There are teachers in Jersey City that take money out of their wallets every single week to augment their classes. But at the end of the day, I've also talked to teachers, some of the best teachers, that are bluntly afraid of not towing the line. If we're going to create excellence, we're going to have to be bold, we're going to have to establish clear metrics, and we're going to have to get it done. And look, I recognize in life I don't have a lot of virtues, but I work hard. And this, to me, is one of the most passionate reasons for running for mayor. That every child, wherever they live in, whatever home, whatever part of the city they have access to a great education. And it's been done in other cities. Frankly, cities far lower socioeconomic class than Jersey City. But it's been done of having a clear game plan where teachers, the school district is accountable to you, City Hall works cooperatively, and we engage the community to do something so basic. It's to make sure that our children are better positioned than ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple of things. First, there are a couple of groups of students and young people that weren't really spoken about today. I sat in a panel discussion a couple of weeks ago with parents of children on the spectrum with autism. And back in the day, Sue Mack took up a cause for her son. If you saw him today, you'd be amazed. But since she left the board, they've gone backwards. And we need to change that. And we need to stand up for that. The same way we need to stand up to make sure that parents who have adult children and adults with autism have a place every day for those young men and young women to go to, because we don't have that now. And Council President Waterman didn't make it here tonight, but she was on that panel, and we committed to find that location. Secondly, we really need to think about those children on the southern end of the city who don't have the programs they need now. And we need to stand up for the Black law enforcement serving community, the PAL, the Boys and Girls Club, because if we don't support those organizations, they are the lifelines. They are the lifelines for those 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds that are there. But we also can't say our school system's horrible. 3 weeks ago, I was at NJCU going to an event where a local nonprofit gives gowns and tuxedos to high school students who can't afford them on their own to go to a prom. And I accidentally walked into this big room, and it was Jersey City schools putting on music performances. And it was amazing. Those grammar school students and high school students and what they did there were amazing. And that showed me that we could do that in every school. And we should want that for every school. And we should want to have great schools. And we have to work for that. And we have to call out the Board of Ed when they're wrong, but we have to work with them too. So at the end of the day, I think that we've got to make sure that each and every day we do something. We do something to help a child, to help a student, whether it's someone in your neighborhood or whether it's somewhere else. Because that's where it starts with. Having a 11-year-old grandson and watching him go through COVID and look at the learning loss that he still deals with today. I can afford every summer to send him to St. Peter's University to catch up on his reading. And he's still a little behind on his reading. But I wonder each and every day how many other children there are in Jersey City whose parents can't afford to send them to that same program. So those are the things that we need to do. Stand up for our children. Stand up for all the good things in our school system, because there are a lot of good things in our school system. And if we give credit to them, if we give praise to them, we can help move all the other teachers, all the other educators, all the other components of our school system to make them better. And you know what else we need to do? And I see her in the back of the room, Sandra Robinson Green, mom, in 1972, Robinson versus Cahill. Thorough and efficient education. That's where it all started. And you know where she's working on today, and we're working on today, because we can't forget them? We also have young men and women that are incarcerated, that are juveniles. They don't get any education at all. And if we fail to educate those young men and young women while they're incarcerated, guess where they're going to end up? In a state correctional facility. So we started discussions. You may see Robinson Green versus Murphy, to make sure that even those people, young men and women, who find themselves screwing up in life, find themselves in a juvenile detention facility. It bothers me. If you're an adult, it's a correctional facility. If you're a juvenile, it's a detention facility. But to make sure that they also have an ability to get a thorough and efficient education.
So first, let me just start with thank yous again. So Jersey City Mamas, thank you. Give it up, Jersey City Mamas. And thank you again to NAR Collective and everyone who's volunteering. And thank you again to the fellow candidates. What I love about Jersey City is basically every incredible moment in my life has been here. My 3 daughters were born at Jersey City Medical Center. This was the city that helped me recover from cancer. I remember my friends Debbie and Sharondale at Gia Gelato. I'd walk in every day and it was a free cup of coffee to help me keep my spirits up. My friend Joel Maffei would take me on walks in Liberty State Park just to keep that energy going during the toughest time in my life. And that ability of having your back in a really tough moment is a story that I have, but it's a story that everybody who's been in Jersey City has had. And it's why we're choosing to raise our children here, why they're at public school, and why we think being raised in Jersey City is going to make them the best kids that they could ever possibly be. And running for mayor is about ensuring that that is true for every single family here. And so we talked about a whole host of things today, and would be the honor of my lifetime to get to be the mayor and work every single day to turn those from vision into reality, to have the single best public schools in a city in the country, to ensure that every single parent and their children can cross a street safely, to build more affordable homes in the next 4 years than we did in the previous 10, and to have the strongest tenant protections of any place in the country. None of those things are outside the realm of the possible. All of them are things that can be done if the city partners with institutions locally and at the state, and if City Hall is focused each and every day on you and not on powerful real estate developers or political machine bosses or the people that too often prevent the city government from doing the job that you hire it to do. And so my commitment is to do that for every single person in this room, every single person in this city. And one thing I do have to ask, I do ask for your vote on November 4th in 2025, because I was told you don't get anything if you don't ask for it. So I'm asking for it today, and if I haven't earned it today, I will try to earn it each and every day until you go to the voting booth on November 4th. Thank you guys so much.
You get the final word.
I get to wrap it up. That's awesome. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you to Jersey City Mamas for putting this together. And my fellow candidates, can we give them both a round of applause? So I think the start of this question is, what do I love so much about Jersey City? And I think Jersey City is the most incredible city in the world. And I don't say that half-heartedly. I mean, I think James's story about Jersey City having your back is something I think so many people can relate to. And I think for me, what I really wanted to double down on is, I look at my fellow candidates on the stage, and I'm a lot younger than some of the people who are here. But the reason I want to talk about that is, I remember when I was running, when I was a young person.
We talked about that. No, we were being nice, remember?
No. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that, this experience is a good thing, right? But I think the thing that I really want to emphasize was, I remember when I was elected as the president of the Board of Education at 23 years old, and 2 weeks into my term, I was actually diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, the same cancer that James had. It's a funny coincidence that we're both up here. We actually went to the same hospital as well, the same exact chemotherapy treatment. He was the clinical trial, and then I was the second phase of that. So I just think there's some kind of destiny in that. But when I was building up my career, as someone who was 23 years old, I built my career as someone who had no chinks in my armor, right? To be so young and to be in politics meant that I always did my homework. I always knew what was going on. I always understood the numbers. And I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer, it was the first time in my life that I had this massive hole, and I wasn't quite sure how people would respond. And the thing that is so incredible about this city that I don't think you'll find anywhere else is that people will always support you. And so for me, my story is an American story that can only happen in this city, right? For someone to be an immigrant, to grow up in their public schools, to represent them, to be elected as the president, that is only something that can happen in this city. And it completely changed my life. And I want to emphasize, when it comes to some of the tough battles that you have to fight, I remember going through chemotherapy, and I remember fighting about teachers' wages, right? Our minimum wage at the time was $54,000. And when I went to the teachers union, I said, look, we want to increase teacher wages. They wanted to increase them all the way at the top, right? They said, look, yeah, what about the teachers that have been here 20 years? And I said, look, we can't focus on those teachers. We have to fight for the teachers at the bottom. And we increased their minimum wage from $54,000 to $61,000. That was in 2021. It's almost still at that same level today. In terms of reopening our schools, right? In the middle of the pandemic, while facing stage 4 cancer, while being in my first year of Harvard Law School, we had to figure out how to deal with an unprecedented public health crisis. How do we work with the governor's office to change the executive order so that teachers could get vaccinated? How do we work with the mayor's office to get vaccines to our teachers? And how do we make sure our teachers are ready to reopen the schools and have the sort of education so that people who are at home could also learn? And I say that to say, this city is a city where anything is possible, where someone who has grown up in the city, that has gone to public schools, can sit here before you and ask you for your vote to be the next mayor of this town. And the most incredible thing I have about this campaign is not just meeting with parents, but it's meeting with young people and inspiring them to believe that you can be someone from this city, that you can go to schools here, that you can be educated here, and that one day you can lead here. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your words. We appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us tonight. No more talking, but from us. It's your turn, so everyone can mingle, check out our vendors, and thank you all again.